So today is October 14th, 6:35 p.m. Meeting of the New York Coalition for Open Government. Meeting is being recorded, so everyone knows. And the first item on our agenda is the meeting minutes from September 9th. So thank you, Alberta, for preparing these minutes.
Welcome.
And I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding the minutes or if someone wants to make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
All right, motion by Janet. Is there a second? I see Maria raising her hand. Looks like a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we have our treasurer's report, so I'll turn it over to Janet.
Good evening, everyone. Glad to see everyone. We have, as was put out with the agenda, 57 paid members. And we received a donation from the National Freedom of Information Coalition, where Paul did the interns. They sent us a nice donation of $400. And that brings our treasury balance, we had no expenses, up to $3,363.12 to date.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? Joe, do you have your hand up there?
Oh, no, I didn't mean to. Sorry.
Okay. Any questions on the treasurer's report?
I just want to say, I don't think it's a donation. I think it's a refund of services for Mr. Wolf for his training.
Sure. They paid us for our work that we did. No problem.
Finally. We
All
need to
right.
get paid for our effort.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? Someone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I saw Alberta. All right, motion by Larry, seconded by Alberta. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. So while we're talking about numbers, we're up to 57 members. The most recent member that joined is a reporter from the Daily Gazette. So that is great. And he is a resident of Warren County. So that now brings us up to 20 counties that we have members in. So we have about a third of the counties across the state we have membership in. So that's great. I had a legislator today, maybe I took it the wrong way, but I had a legislator today ask me, well, how many members do you have? And I didn't know if it was a shot of, you know what, you're not legit, this is just you and a few friends. But again, maybe she was just legitimately asking and I took it the wrong way. But I was happy to tell her we have members in 20 counties across the state of New York. And she seemed kind of surprised by that. So, we're up to like 420 Facebook followers. Actually, the past month, that's kind of increased by 50. We were at like 370, so that's jumped up to 420. I just started us on Twitter. I've been late to the Twitter game. People keep telling me I should be on Twitter. And so I did set up a Twitter account and we're up to 34 followers. But for those of you that do Twitter, I guess Facebook is kind of the old folks game and Twitter's the younger crowd. So hopefully we can cover all the bases. So let me go to the third item on the agenda, which is Albany legislation. I just found out actually on Twitter the other day from a tweet by legislator Amy Paulin. Amy Paulin was the sponsor of the two bills that we got passed this year. She tweeted that the one bill mandating that meeting documents be posted 24 hours before a meeting has been sent to the governor for signature. It hasn't been signed yet, but at least now has made its way to the governor's desk. I don't know about the other bill. About 500 bills were waiting signature, and last I saw about 400 have been signed. So we're in the kind of the final end here. So hopefully soon both of those bills will be signed, and that'll be a nice accomplishment that we can hopefully build on in the next legislative session. Any question on Albany legislation? All right, go to number 4. Our next report, it seems like I've been saying this forever, the County Board of Elections. A draft has finally been written. I usually send the drafts to Janet and Steve Lyle. They're very good at reviewing them, so I have sent it to them for their review. And I also sent it to Brad Racino, who's a newer member of ours and a reporter. And he gave me a lot of detailed feedback on the draft. So we're just working on polishing that up, and we'll distribute it to everyone before we make it public so everyone can take a look at it. But I think it's going to be a very interesting report. Just terrible lack of compliance by County Board of Elections in responding to FOIL requests, which many of you know from having called and sent emails. Terrible lack of compliance regarding the open meetings law. They rarely meet, which is a problem. Very few were able to give us minutes. So that should be good. And so that is a segue to number 5. There is a group called Let New York Vote. I spoke to them a couple months ago. They contacted me. They're kind of a coalition of a bunch of groups across the state working on election issues. They asked me to give them a presentation on the open meetings law. I did that back in March. And they circled back to me again and said, can I talk to them again about open meeting law questions? So I did do that about a week or 2 ago. And they're very interested in our report. And then I had a follow-up meeting with Susan Lerner, who is the chair or the head of Common Cause in New York State, and an attorney by the name of Jarrett Berg, who is the executive director of a nonprofit that works on voting issues. And Jarrett seemed very sharp and had a lot of interesting thoughts about open meeting laws and the report. They have dealt with some Board of Elections saying the open meetings law doesn't apply to them, which I certainly disagree with. So they've asked if they could maybe join us on the report. I said, well, I'll send you a draft, and I'm certainly open to any feedback or suggestion, input they may have on adding to it. So we'll see where that goes. Maybe that could be some sort of partnership that we can build upon. We had Susan Lerner, the head of Common Cause, before the pandemic, speak at one of our meetings that we did in September. They're, a well-recognized active group with some resources. So we'll work together on highlighting some of these Board of Election issues. So that takes us to number 6, Buffalo Bills Stadium transparency. It's certainly been a big issue in the upstate area, and we've had some success. We got the Erie County Legislature to unanimously pass a resolution calling for the stadium study done by the Buffalo Bills to be released. I was kind of surprised that passed unanimously. They were very resistant, as usual, to having me even come to their meeting to talk about it. They just want to avoid it. They just want it all to go away. They don't want any attention. So Legislator Larigo has been very aggressive in pushing this transparency issue. So that resolution got passed. Part of the point I made, or we've made, is that not only should all the information be made public, but there should be an opportunity for the public to be heard as well. And we're talking about spending several $100 million in taxpayer money, and the last time they did this in 2013, there was no opportunity for the public to be heard. The Erie County Legislature doesn't even have public comments as part of their meeting agenda, which is just amazing. So today I got to speak to them again. It was the usual routine. I sent, because they don't have public comment, you have to ask the committee chair for permission to speak. I sent an email to the committee chair. He doesn't respond. I called his office, spoke to a staff member, never got a call back. So then, yesterday afternoon, I send a press release out saying they haven't responded to me and I'm coming anyways. And then I get an email within minutes from a staff person say, of course you could speak. And in the future, just contact me as the staff person. And why a legislator, can't respond to an email or a phone call is beyond me. So I got to speak today. The latest resolution by Larigo is that there be at least 3 public hearings held before they vote on this, which is fair enough. And he pointed out, he was there in 2013, that the last agreement was dropped on their desk the same day as the meeting. They were told they needed to vote on it the same day. They had very little opportunity to review it. There was no public comment and it passed. And he doesn't want that process. He doesn't want to be put in that position again as a legislator. And the public should have the opportunity to be heard. So the resolution got tabled and Larigo was very aggressive in saying, I don't understand why this can't be passed now. I mean, what is the objection? Who is opposed to hearing from the public? Of course, there was silence in the room when he said that. And, if there's changes you want to propose to the resolution, let's hear it now. I'm open to discussion. One of the things he put in there was that, which is probably a problem, that they not vote on it for 90 days, that they have 90 days to review the agreement, although it's probably going to be a 1,000-page agreement. So he said, look, if the 90 days is too much, let's talk. Maybe we can do 60 days. Maybe we can do something. But so it got tabled. He claims he's going to bring it up at next Thursday's legislature meeting. I just posted on our Facebook page, the Buffalo News did do an article about the meeting, which mentions our group's efforts. And so you can see that on the Buffalo News website. It's on our Facebook page. And we'll have to see what happens. We've been, getting a lot of publicity out of this issue, which I think in part has spurred 50 new members to follow us on Facebook. I think a lot of it's driven by the publicity coming from the Buffalo Bills issue. But it's also just our name getting out little by little across the state. Any comments, Maria?
I just had a comment, Paul. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this daunting task, beating people over the head. Number 2, I think I read in one of the press release or somewhere along the line, maybe it was Larigo, that out of the 3 public meetings, we're looking for at least 1 public meeting that maybe could be in the evening hours when people are home and not at work. Because, if you have a public comment period and it's Tuesday afternoon at 10 o'clock or morning, sometimes it's hard for people, to just say, I got to leave my job right now. I got to go Zoom about this.
Yep.
So I don't know.
I think the resolution does call for evening public hearings, and it also calls for establishing a way for people to submit comments through the website as well.
Okay, that would be, I think, real important. Thank you.
Yep. Joe, you're on mute. Still muted. There
Sorry
you go.
about that. Great point, Maria, because, that is hugely important. Accessibility is transparency. Kind of a random question, but does anybody have any opinions on, we're kind of having an unprecedented season right now with the Bills and, considered front runners in the NFL, or at least the AFC. Do you think that somehow that is going to play in with any kind of attitude regarding apathy or more interest in terms of, because my fear is that they do so well that nobody cares about what's going on behind the scenes, as long as they get their, Super Bowl.
I think that's definitely a factor. I think it's harder to sell this if they're losing. And if they're winning, I think there is an atmosphere and an environment of, we don't want to get in the way of this. So I think it does affect things.
Yeah, it's almost unpatriotic.
Right, right.
No, it's not though. I mean, we don't need to, lose the farm just to get the Super Bowl ring.
Well, and Larigo's made the point too. He says, look, I'm a Bills fan. I go to Bills games, but I'm a legislator and I want information, and the public should have information. I mean, at the end of the day, if it's a good deal or a bad deal, we need the information to know. So whether you're for the stadium, against the stadium, whatever. And I don't think we need to take a position on that. I don't think we need to take a position on whether this is a good project or a bad project. Our position is information needs to be made available and the public needs to have an opportunity to be heard.
At least we always have to be advocating for that. That's the side we always have to fall on.
Yeah.
And I think the comparison that you made, or was made, that in 2013, the legislators who are the people who are voting on this, spending $90 million or whatever it was, they had 5 minutes to look it over. So that's not really an informed vote. And I think if we just keep on that, like you said, we don't have to take a position, but you need to have at least 5 minutes to look at something. I don't care if it's 3 pages, I think you need to be able to look at it, think about it, and then vote. And if they're just pushing this and they're just, rubber stamping it. I think the interest that the Bills and the kind of putting it in front of their face, Paul, has made this an issue that it can't go away now. So I'm optimistic that will occur.
Yeah. And should also mention, we filed a FOIL request for the stadium study, which Joe did. We expected our request to be denied. We recently got the denial. So I have to work on writing an appeal of that denial. I think that issue should be litigated. I think there's some discussions about a local media that had their FOIL request denied, may through the UB Law Clinic file a lawsuit. So if they don't, I think it's something that we have to seriously think about trying to do as well. So that's why we filed our FOIL.
So they denied your FOIL or Joe's FOIL? I'm not clear on
Well,
that.
our file is Joe. Joe filed the FOIL for our group.
Oh, okay. And they just denied, did they give a reason or rationale?
The same reason they've given others, and that this would impair the ability to obtain a contract, which there is an exemption under the law for that, but it doesn't fit this situation. That exemption is meant when there's competitive bidding going on. You shouldn't have to disclose your study to a competitor. Well, here there is no competitor. So there's no reason not to release the study.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Anything else on the bill stuff? If not, Michelle? I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I think you're absolutely correct that there needs to be more interest from the citizens. We also need to educate our local citizens. For some of you that were privy to some conversations about behind the scenes conversations, I think that the coalition, correct me if I'm wrong, is really taking a very strong stance on implementing hybrid meetings locally, state, as well as federally. And I think that is huge. And sitting in on some of these national conferences, having these hybrid meetings. And again, that circles back to some things that Joe said, Maria said about just local interest, but granting that accessibility to all of our citizens throughout the entire state. If we're encompassing all of these counties, then we as the advocates for these counties have to speak up for our citizens and say, we have to say, okay, our disabled citizens don't have access because they can't get to the meeting, so they should have hybrid. So why? And yes, it's about COVID, but it's bigger than that. Like, let's just look at what our state is doing with some of the funds for the bills, and Schumer saying we're going to put federal dollars into funds to infrastructure around the bills. Let's make it more statewide. We have to really encompass all of our citizens throughout the entire state. Every rural, urban area, like if that's our position, then we have to really, really push for hybrid meetings. I can speak for my own individual town in New Haven, New York, that grants per their public policy for citizens to speak out before as well as after an action. So why is our governor not doing that? Why are our senators not doing that? And again, as I said before, I'll step off my soapbox, but it's a big problem statewide and nationally.
Well, we should hold that discussion for number 9 on the agenda when we talk about the open meetings law hearings coming up. So anything else on the bills? Oh, my phone, let me turn that off. So let's go to the next item, which is number 7, New York State Committee on Open Government. So there's been a lot of talk about reforming what's called JCOPE, the Joint Commission on Public Ethics. There's a board in Albany that deals with legislator ethics, and there's a lot of discussion that it's not set up properly. And I think that same argument needs to occur, or discussion needs to occur regarding the New York State Committee on Open Government. So we sent out a press release, first of all, questioning the appointment of the current executive director. The way she was selected was a terrible process. It was done when Cuomo was in office behind closed doors. Here you have the Committee on Open Government and the executive director being selected behind closed doors, with the governor strongly influencing how that happened. So Hochul has been removing a lot of Cuomo appointees, and we said in our letter, well, maybe she should be removed. First of all, the way she selected was improper. Secondly, her background doesn't seem to be the most appropriate. She was the FOIL appeals officer for a state agency, and the Albany Times newspaper filed 10 appeals, and she ruled against them all 10 times. And this person is the executive director for the Committee on Open Government. I mean, should have been some victories for the newspaper, but it was 0 for 10. And she doesn't favor the public speaking at Committee on Open Government meetings. For those of us that watched the past few meetings, they've had a discussion and debate, and she does not favor. I asked to speak at a meeting initially a couple months ago, and she denied my request, and I took it to the board, and then the board let me speak. But since then, she has stated she does not favor having the public speak at their meetings. So for all those reasons, we said, well, Governor, you're committed to transparency. Maybe we should do a new search process. She can certainly apply, and maybe she is the best person for the job, but let's have an open process to find out what other people are available to serve. So that was one point we made. And the other point was the way the committee is structured seems like it needs to be changed. There are 11 appointments, and 9 of them are controlled by the governor. Again, it makes it very difficult for the committee to be independent when the governor has that many appointments. And the other state elected officials have no appointments. The attorney general, the state controller, perhaps they should. And it just seems like the wrong people are at the table. So the law that set up the committee says the director of the budget should be on this. Why? There's different agency department heads that they put on this body. I think there should be more citizen appointments, more people from open government groups, and more just local government officials. There should be someone maybe from the Town Clerks Association. You know, it's the town clerks that do the meeting minutes and agendas, and they're not represented at all. So it seems like the makeup of the committee needs to be fixed. So we sent out that press release. The first week, I think I sent out an email that it had been picked up by 10 newspapers. Since then, it's actually been picked up by others. It's interesting. There's usually a lag time. A lot of the local papers, it takes them a week or two to pick something up. So I think we're up to like 15, 16 newspapers have now covered our release. The governor hasn't made any public announcements about replacing the executive director. Maybe that's still to come, or maybe not. I don't know. But certainly, if you watch the meetings, they're pretty dysfunctional. There's a lot of bickering going on between, there are some members. I think the board president is very committed to open government. And there's Dave Schultz, who's an attorney, is very committed to open government. And then the government officials that are on that committee are very resistant to it. So there's an interesting clash going on there. I believe they're having a meeting again, thanks to Michelle pointing it out to me. They're having a meeting again coming up Tuesday. Any comments or discussion? I see Casey, you have your hands up.
Yeah, question, have any of the other government, open government groups bought in on replacing the director? Have you had any discussions on that?
You know, it's interesting. I did reach out to some a couple weeks ago, and they were resistant to taking that position. Some of them take the position that, you know what, the Committee on Open Government's irrelevant. I don't really care what they do. They issue advisory opinions, and other than that, they're irrelevant. It's not worth my time and energy. So they did not care to become involved or supportive. And I got kind of the same feedback from some others. So I said, well, we'll just go it alone. So we just did it alone.
Yeah, that's interesting because back years ago, when I was actively involved in doing a lot of different things, the Committee on Open Government was considered to be the authority. In other words, they issued an advisory opinion and everybody listened to it. And of course, had different director and all of that at that time. But, I would cite them all the time and send somebody an advisory opinion and they'd say, oh, really? And we normally get compliance. That's changed, as you've indicated, with a new director. It just doesn't, it seems to have faded. I mean, Bob Freeman, he had his own problems, but he was all over the place. I mean, every meeting you go to of a government agency, he was giving a presentation and very open in regard to reaching him and so forth. I've called the Committee on Open Government a couple of times, and basically it was like, why are you calling us for anything? You're wrong. You shouldn't be getting involved in things like this. And I say, well, this has changed.
Yeah.
So, I think that the others really maybe have never experienced that previously, but that's what my experience was, for a long time, that it was very effective in regard to what it was doing.
Yeah. Like you say, Bob Freeman, certainly he was a flawed individual, but he was a recognized expert, for 40 years of experience. But it seems to the way the committee is viewed seems to have changed. Even some of the board members are now saying that the body is not what it once was, and that's part of the debate and discussion that's occurring.
And Paul, I've been in a couple of their meetings, and their whole culture is, it seems to me, they get into the weeds about their little agenda, and they deal with just like this minutia. And then when something is raised that somebody like Paul Wolf or anybody might want to be on speak, whether virtual or otherwise, their dander just rises. And it's like, how dare you think you could talk at our meeting? It's like they miss the whole concept that it's not their meeting, it's our meeting, and we should be allowed to speak. So it's really hard. And I don't know if this new person, what's her name, Shoshana, has she issued any advisory opinions since she's been in
Yeah,
so-called
yeah,
office?
there have been.
Okay, anything that's substantial or, has a lens of open government about it?
Well, I mean, some of her opinions have been criticized. There was an opinion she issued regarding police disciplinary reports where it was her opinion that unfounded police disciplinary reports should not be released. A lot of people disagreed with that. We mentioned in our letter that she was asked her opinion about the governor's book deal. And she said, well, there's no court decisions on that, so I can't take an opinion. And people took it as she did a complete dodge on criticizing the governor. What do you mean? The committee has issued plenty of opinions without court decisions. That's kind of what the committee's role is, to, advocate, push the envelope a little bit at times. And she just completely avoided that issue because I think she didn't want to be critical of the governor, which is not good. Joe.
Thank you.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like the politics need to be taken out of this committee. And I don't know how do you raise that? I mean, by changing the appointments, I think that's an important way, but it's about transparency, not politics.
Yeah. Well, certainly when the governor controls 9 of the appointments, I think it makes it difficult for the committee to be independent. All right, so let's move on to number 8 on the agenda, which is Skinny Atlas. I love that name. School Board Executive Session. So I saw an article in the Auburn Citizen, and we've dealt with this issue again with some other boards, that they were replacing a school board member that resigned, and they went into executive session to discuss filling that appointment. And the Auburn Citizen, the reporter, said, I don't think that's proper. I've read opinions by the Committee on Open Government that you should not do an executive session when filling an elected position. And they said, no, we consulted with our attorney. And I watched the meeting video, and to Casey's point, it was kind of disappointing. The attorney recognized that there were opinions from the Committee on Open Government that said they shouldn't do this, but they're just opinions. They're just advisory. You don't have to follow them. And that's what she advised the board. And in one of the opinions, they referenced a case that supported their argument. And she said that case has been overturned, which I pointed out in the letter, which is in our agenda packet, it's an incorrect interpretation of the law. Yes, the opinion was overturned. It was overturned on one issue. There was an issue about whether attorney fees should be paid, but the issue of whether the executive session was improper or not was not overturned. So that was really bad legal advice, in my opinion. So we sent a letter just pointing that out. We've talked to legislator Paulin about this issue, that there really should be something in the law to clarify this, and she's interested in introducing legislation that just makes it clear in the law that if you're filling, whether it's a city council, county legislature, school board, if you're filling a vacant elected position, there should be no executive session. You should interview people in public. They're seeking public office. Your discussion or debate about who to select should occur in public. We're talking about an elected position. So we've seen this now a few times. There's this, well, because we can go into executive session to hire someone for a job, we can do it for this. It's not the same thing. So we will continue to point this out. And hopefully we can get some legislation introduced regarding this. Any comments on that? All right. Number 9 on our agenda is open meetings law hearing. So we did do a joint letter with us and I think about 7 or 8 other groups because of this issue about hybrid meetings and in-person meetings or remote meetings. Our organization joined a letter with Reinvent Albany, Common Cause, NYCOG, and others, saying there really should be a hearing held by the Assembly, especially since the bill the governor has in place now expires in January. There should be some type of hearing to solicit ideas on how to improve the open meetings law. So I was glad to see that the Assembly Committee on Government Operations, Assembly Committee on Cities, and I think local government, the 3 committee chairs have come together to schedule a hearing. And that's scheduled October 25th. It's attached to the agenda items at 10:30 in the morning. So I saw this and kind of like, we went through this recently with me wanting to testify regarding election boards. They had a hearing in Rochester, but you had to appear in person. Same thing for this. There was no ability to speak remotely. And I contacted Reinvent Albany and I said, geez, is there some way we can get them to do this remotely? And Reinvent Albany, they have better direct dealings with legislators than I do. They contacted the chair of the chair of that committee, and he said no. So Reinvent Albany came back to me and they said, well, we asked, and he said no. Well, not one to take no for an answer. I wrote an email and I copied the other groups saying, this is ridiculous. I and others are not going to drive. It would be a 10-hour round trip to me to drive from Buffalo to Albany to speak for 5 minutes. I can't do it, not going to do it. And I'm sure there are all the other organizations have people that would like that. This is an important issue. Why would you not make it accessible for people across the state to testify? To their credit, the Assembly chair changed his mind. And he has agreed that people will now be able to testify remotely. Michelle has been doing a lot of great research, and Mary Louise as well. We've been taking a look at just other state laws regarding posting meeting documents, posting meeting minutes, mandating live streaming of meetings, just all kinds of stuff. Because it's helpful to say, 8 other states do this, why can't we? So we've been gathering some research, but we should definitely have a couple of us sign up to speak for this hearing. So I guess I'll ask people either tell me now or send me an email if you would like to speak. We could probably break it out into different topics. We could probably have 3 or 4 people speak. One person speak about meeting minutes, one person speak about enforcement or the structure of the committee, one person speak about posting meeting documents, whatever. Either tell me now or send me an email if you would like, hey, I would like to speak for 5 minutes. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people, it's the last thing in the world they want to do is, speak in front of a bunch of legislators on video for 5 minutes. Michelle, I don't know if you want to comment on any of that stuff or some of the research you've been doing.
Yes, am I off mute? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Yes, I definitely am not a public speaker, so I am totally for people questioning what research I've done, where I stand. I was part of debate club in high school, so I totally get that. So yes, I've done research, but that doesn't make me an authority on this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not as experienced as many of you are. So with that said, I submitted my research, my personal research. I know others have done research as well. I'm willing to hear what people have to say. I'm willing to speak. I definitely want to have others debate that prior to speaking on behalf of the coalition. Like, this is not about me. This is about the citizens of this state.
We'll get 3 or 4 people together that want to speak, and we can practice our 5 minutes with each other. And
Sure.
get practice questions and
I
whatever.
was gonna suggest that. I'd be happy to help, and I think that would be good to kind of have some role playing before, so we wouldn't feel so uncomfortable. And I think it's great that you were able to get their attention to do this remote. And the next time they tell you to drive to Albany, invite them to come to Buffalo. It's only 10 hours,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'd be happy to help in any way I could.
All right. So Maria, Michelle, I know
Paul,
Mary said that she would have to work, so she couldn't do it.
And this is for
I'd be
October
willing to do
25th.
it, Paul.
Yep, October 25th. We don't know what time you would actually get to speak. It starts at 10:30. It could go to 2:30, 3:30, 4:30. I have no idea how many people are going to want to speak. So it's gonna
Normally
be
you
a
get-
lot.
Normally you get on the agenda and then they call you in order. At
Yeah.
least in ones that I've been involved in previously, I haven't been involved in quite a while. But
Okay.
normally you know approximately what order you're going to be in. And of course,
Yeah.
they can change it at the last minute too.
Yeah.
We'll be interested also, I've got some things going on down here. And I think they're applicable, to what the overall issue is.
All right.
I'd be
So
interested.
Joe, Casey, Maria, Michelle, myself. If there's others, like I say, send me an email, but what I can do is I can put a list together of topics. I can share the research and we can, have either people volunteer for whichever topic they like. And we only got like 10 days, so we'll have to sort that out soon.
And I think it'd be good, Paul, what you suggested to kind of, go through topic A, B, C, D, and E, and which is our priority, and to have a little role playing before would certainly give us the confidence to come across as we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Great.
I just like to.
Go ahead, sorry.
I just like to throw out something else too, which is, as the conversation's been going on, the thing that I think that we have going for us, if we do it right and do it well, is that somebody in local government or is running for office is not going to come out and say they're not for transparency. We've got the right issue. It's just fashioning it in such a way that everybody can buy into it without getting into this back and forth and avoiding it by doing another rabbit trail. And so I think that, some of the things that have been brought up, here, I mean, it's just like you, Paul, when you said, why, you're having a public hearing, why can't the public come, I mean, they should normally, if they're really interested in public hearings, they hold 3 or 4 of them across the state. They'll hold one downstate, one in Albany, one in Rochester, and one in Buffalo. And sometimes, depending upon who's on the committee, they'll also hold them in some of the rural areas too.
Yeah.
So, you weren't asking for something that isn't normal.
I think
were
part
they
of the
doing it for show
problem,
or to go,
I think part of the problem, Casey, is that, people will pay lip service to transparency, but most politicians in New York State are really more committed to one party rule, which is what we've had in one form or another, wherever you drop the pin in the state. And that's why they're really opposed to transparency, because it doesn't help one party rule.
Well, it avoids it eliminates the caucus, and the caucus is what they're all about, it makes it more and more difficult to, to come out with one opinion and, nobody's opinion counts.
We have to make, I think our goal is to make closed door bargaining unfashionable and unpopular.
Right.
So the only
That
thing
does take a lot.
the only thing that concerns me about having 3, 4, 5 speakers is them saying, well, look, we're not going to have 4 people from the coalition speak. But my hope is, because we're going to break it out by topics, none of it's going to be repetitive. So
I'm willing to say that I am speaking on behalf of the citizens. I'm willing to say I'm speaking outside of the coalition. And granted, when I was part of this national conference, I was part of a coalition, but I generally position myself on behalf of the citizens. So again, to have individual people speak out is very, very important, I think.
yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
And I'd
The
be
other-
doing the same thing is that, from the particular aspect that I've been involved with, and I've been involved in government, been involved in news, back involved in news again, and also as a public citizen. So we can break it out. I mean, it doesn't have to be from the coalition. It just gets all the coalition points on.
Yeah.
And even if there were, if I have this right, even if there were, let's say, 5 of us gonna speak and they decided they didn't want to have 5 of us. I mean, what would preclude 3 of us speaking and 2 of us just being on there? Do you know, I mean, if we're gonna be speaking, if we only have 10 minutes, because we don't knock off any of their people and say too many guys up there, so I think it should be like equal time.
Well, I think it'll
Also, we
depend on
don't
how many
necessarily
people.
have to identify ourselves beforehand as being part of the coalition. That could come out during our remarks.
Yeah. All right, so.
I can also say that I speak on behalf of local entities that I can speak outside of the coalition. So maybe other people have local agencies that they're speaking out on, and the coalition has 1 or 2 people, and then other people are speaking on behalf of their local coalitions. They're in turn piggybacking on the coalition, because
Well-
that's what I'm finding from the national agencies, is that these state and local agencies are piggybacking together to, again, isn't that what we're doing?
Well, along that point, like Casey, you could sign up that you're speaking on behalf of Allegheny Hope, or Joe, you could sign up that you're speaking on behalf of, as a journalist. But while you speak, you could also say, I am a member of the coalition, blah, blah, blah.
Right. Right.
Either way,
It's a great way to get us noticed too.
yeah.
But I don't think we should hide or, be
No.
real reticent about, my name is Maria, but I think we should be proud of being part of the coalition and our purpose in what we're doing.
So,
At the same time, we shouldn't be echoing the same thing. From what
Right.
I sat in on the National Coalition, Mr. Wolf and the board members, I'm not a board member, I'm just a member. That's all I can say right now. So Mr. Wolf and the board members should speak generally on behalf of the coalition. And then other individual members should speak on behalf of their individual capacities to diversify. Just sitting in on national coalitions, we have to diversify.
So
So
the other thing
how
in
can we
regard-
diversify individually amongst the state?
So
Another
that
thing in
takes me
regard-
to the next agenda item, which is number 10, the National Freedom of Information Coalition Summit. I was only able to attend a few sessions. I know Michelle attended a lot of sessions. They had a great turnout. I forget how they had a couple hundred people sign up.
Almost 300.
Yeah, to sign up.
290 something.
Wow.
So the few sessions that I was able to attend were definitely informative. Michelle, I don't know if you want to share things you liked or didn't like about it.
I'll try to be brief. I think I shared with you, Mr. Wolf, about the bill track
And you
50,
have to
and
stop
I'm gonna
calling-
speak
you
about
have to
members
stop
only.
Calling me Mr. Wolf, Paul.
Well, that's how I was raised. So anyway, the bill track 50 was extremely informative, and I hope that you got information, because I think us as a coalition, we get a general membership, and then board members are granted certain access and general members are granted further access. But that bill track 50 was really, really informative. It basically tracked all sorts of legislation across the United States. That was very informative. And from my understanding, as a coalition, we have access to that, which I think we should thoroughly explore. So some of the board members, if they're not familiar with it, I've not disseminated anything that was member specific. Paul should disseminate that, and the board members should disseminate that. But the bill track 50 was very, very informative for the members aspect, as well as the diversifying how not being grant dependent, because I think certain members had mentioned, Mr. Casey, you specifically said don't be grant dependent. So again, as a coalition, we have to diversify the funds that we get in. And we should absolutely pay our members, our legal members, Mr. Wolf, our staff, our board staff, they should be paid for their time. And in order for us to do that, again, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and being a new member, that we are not going to be federally grant dependent, that we want to make sure that we are bipartisan, independently funded, so that we can be diversified. The other, again, outside of what you should disseminate to the board members and then further disseminate to the members, the main meeting that I found extremely poignant, what had to do with, let me pull it up real quick so I do not misquote anything. It was and I think I can share the video. Mr. Wolf, you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can share this with our members because it's a general case. It was from Thursday. And it was, sorry, my computer's lagging behind. How can more informed and diverse public engagement with government foster greater FOIA? I know that our coalition is really focusing on trying to do the best thing for our state. So with that, I know that there's been conversations about research that I've done, research that others have done to see what are good, viable options nationally. So this particular session, which was one of many of a 3 days conference, had to do with the Indiana Public Access Counselor, which I think I mentioned previously in our forum, that he has a unique, an apolitical position as a pseudo quasi judge to foster administrative remedies to citizens as well as governmental and different school boards. So again, there's really good models throughout the state that we can piggyback on. Again, I'm taking the term that this national conference, I'm going to piggyback on this or piggyback on that. So New York State should really piggyback on some of the things that other states are doing. The New York Committee for Open Government is failing this state. I think we're all fully aware of that. And we are, as a coalition, pushing to redevelop this entity to be more fostering of public engagement. And I think that's all of our goals on so many levels, for citizens, legislative, as well as journalistic. And that's what we're about, right? If anybody is specifically interested in hearing or getting more specific information, let me know. I'll try to share it, but that specific session was very informative. It talked about Fairfax County, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., and what they are doing to foster greater relations for FOIA that we should be emulating within the state. People look at New York State as a leader in this nation, so we should consider ourselves leaders in this nation.
All right. I haven't looked at the Bill Track 50 stuff. I know it's kind of a new program that the National Coalition is big on, that they're making available to coalitions like ours, which are members. And it is, a computer system that allows you to track legislation from across the country. It's always good to see what other people are doing and maybe find good ideas to copy. So I'll have to look into that some more. I don't know if anybody's particularly interested in taking that on or being the point person to, learn how to do Bill Track 50. I don't know, if Michelle, if that's something you're specifically interested in or someone else. But I will gather that information, and that's something we can work on. So that would take us to new business.
Hopefully, if we have 50 members, we can get some other volunteers within there to delegate things to.
Yeah. That takes us next to new business. Anyone have anything new they want to bring up?
Well,
Yes.
I just want to make a comment on a couple of things that Michelle was saying. And I'm about this paying the board members. Right now, that wouldn't be a favorable idea.
Right. I think she's talking in the future. If we ever got sufficient grant money, we should pay people for their work.
Well, my concern is about
board members typically don't get paid, but
right.
But at some point, hopefully, we could have staff in the future. But that's a ways down the road for sure.
Okay.
Anything else under new business?
I'd like to bring up something I mentioned to you today, Paul, in an email, but I think another hot issue, or could be a hot issue that would lend credence to this group, is the whole aspect of information that's not being made available in regard to this COVID situation. Very difficult to get real information other than what the state posts on their website. And there's a lot of different opinions in regard to COVID, in regard to vaccinations and all that. But basically, we're not getting good information in regard to what's really going on. I've been fighting down here in Allegheny County, and I don't see virtually any other newspapers doing it at all, much, at least much, in regard to actually getting information that's helpful to the public. The school districts, aren't responding. The county health departments aren't responding. And you have to pick and choose or pick a piece from here and here and here and try to correlate it in order to actually come up with something that's meaningful. And there should be a central base. I mean, we're talking about a public health hazard. If this is not in other situations, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, and things, the state really is not prepared from a public information standpoint. I've been involved in public information ever since I was a kid, with back when it was civil defense, and that's the most important piece. Rather than, in addition to stabilizing the situation at the time, is getting information to the people. And there is no real information getting to the people other than some numbers. And if you get real information, I just got a response the other day. I haven't even read it because it was so old, it didn't make any difference. From the health department for a freedom of information request I made, I think it was 8 months ago now. And I just got an answer, and I don't think the answer was actually pertinent to what I asked. But, and I've got more that are pending that I haven't received anything other than extension letters. But I think this is an issue that people can equate with. I know down here, I've got parents that are irate because the schools are not providing information in regard to kids and teachers and staff that are isolated in quarantine. I just ran in over the weekend a situation like that. The school district superintendent, as best I can tell, is reporting the information wrong. And I don't know if it's intentional, unintentional, or what, but he says that's the way it's always been. Well, I've been tracking this stuff for 18 months, and I can tell you that's not always the way it's been in that district. And so, that's, so I think it's an issue that could be very well something that, and I'm not sure exactly what anybody wants to get involved in. We've got this Buffalo Bills issue that's taking up a lot of time already, but this other one is ongoing. It's really has to do with people's public health.
The hard part with that issue, like you say, is you have to grab information from so many different sources and then put it together in a way that's meaningful.
But Mr. Jones, I think you have a very good point, because, we just paid our school taxes. So we have paid our school taxes, and yet we don't know of the school district that we're paying for, what's the prevalence or incidence or increase of, now that the kids have gone back to school, of COVID. And if you're in that community and there's a school, 1.5 miles away from you, and they have an increase of COVID, on the news, they'll report 4.2%, but that's all of Erie County. It doesn't say, 1% is in Tonawanda, 2% is in Orchard Park School District. And I think your point is very well taken. The school districts is just totally, I don't know. I mean, I think they have statistics. They give it to the county gives it to the state, or vice versa, but there's no, who's checking the veracity of those stats? It could be wrong. And if we can't look at it, what good is it? I mean, who is it for then? Why can't we look at this information? There should be someplace you can go to a central registry, and look up, just like you can go look up property values or whatever. There should be like a book. And I know they're going to say privacy issues. You don't have to have the kid's name, but you can have some kind of information where it says, the high school has so many cases, or the elementary school has so many cases. I think that's very, very important, especially like you said, this is a pandemic. It hasn't gone away, and we don't have the information. And that really is almost criminal.
Well, there actually is a state report card that you can look at, but what I'm finding is that the state report card is not necessarily accurate. I just got a printout, and which is, if I can get it large enough so I can read it, that basically will blow all the numbers that are being reported by the school districts off the wall. There are some that are reporting. I had one case, a new superintendent came in and issued 5 news releases saying that there were cases in a school, which amounted to over 12, 15 kids. Then I sent a Freedom of Information request to all of the school districts to try to reconcile numbers, because the state dashboard didn't go into effect until September 13th, 2 weeks after school started. I got back from that same school district that the superintendent had issued 5 news releases, an answer that says, we don't have records in regard to what you're asking for, which is basically the same numbers he'd been giving out. So I have, like 6 different scenarios of people responding to these things, and so you can't believe the numbers. And the county, which has access to it, I finally did get information yesterday since September 1, and the numbers are far more than what's on the school dashboard. So trying to come up with that correlation is very difficult, and you get pushback and you get everything else. But I think this isn't, as I say, how to approach it is another issue, but I think it is an issue that there were a lot of people would be buying into, because parents are really upset because they have to they have to coordinate between child in 3 different grades being isolated, quarantined, who may have exposed them, who did this, who did that. And then in broken families, you might have kids being in 3 different households today or tomorrow. It's a very real mess, but it's,
And I think
as the group grows and we get bigger, this might be something that maybe we might want to form committees, like having a public health reporting committee. So, we have more of a forum to discuss these issues in greater detail.
Yeah. I think that would be a good idea. Health departments in particular have
That's a
ton of data.
fabulous idea.
Yeah. Health departments have
I tell you, Casey, the emails I get from you make my head spin. I mean, the FOIL request that you're doing and all the information that you're correlating, it's a lot of work.
Well, we're
But,
doing,
you know,
takes a
but I
little
think-
time.
I think it's important to also look at, and I think, Mr. Jones, you very good points. You have to look at who's compiling the data. Is it the school nurse, the principal, the teacher? And who's reporting it? And is there some kind of a system? Like, do you report for the month of September, the month of October? Do you do it every 6 months? And what you indicated that you asked for some information and they just said, we don't even have that information. So there's kids with COVID in our schools and we don't know how many, where, and your point was so well taken. If it's a divorced couple, this kid might be at grandma's house and the ex-wife's house and the ex-husband's girlfriend's house. And, talk about spreading COVID, I think that's a big, big issue.
I know
But no.
in Williamsville, my daughter goes to the Williamsville schools. I get an email every day of what confirmed cases they have for the day. My daughter is currently being quarantined because a kid next to her in lunch tested positive. Now, fortunately, she tested negative, but even with the negative test, they say you got to sit out of school for 10 days.
Wow.
Which drove me crazy, but it is what it is.
Well, right now we have more than 1 out of 3 residents of the county, a number equal to that, who have either been quarantined or isolated in the last 18 months. And of course, we don't know how many might have been quarantined 3 or 4 times because
Right.
of somebody in
That's
the,
my fear is this is going to happen 2 or 3 times this
Yeah.
school year before we're
Yeah.
done.
yeah. But I think Joe's idea of some committees, that focus on certain areas, would be helpful in this. Because going back to the health departments, even in particular, I sent information to the to the Board of Health 3 different times and spoke before them twice, and all I got was 100% silence. They didn't respond, they didn't look, they didn't do anything. Thank you. That's the end of it. And but we have situations involving, we got rabies situations, you've got lead poisoning situations. I don't know how prevalent it is because I have to drag it out of them every time. I mean, I'm literally filing multiple FOIL requests for the county. And I started because the county has not put on their website who's responsible. I actually am filing at least 3 or 4 a week, just trying to keep up with the information and then trying to correlate it once I get it back. And I'm doing that, but that's not happening in almost any other county. So people there, I mean, I have people from all over that are on, my Facebook dispatches because I'm providing information in regard to surrounding counties too at different times that they can't get anywhere else.
Well, I can send out an email asking people to propose committee ideas and see what we come up with. If there's particular issues that more people are interested in than others, we can, certainly form committee on those issues.
I think that'd be great.
Okay. Anything else under new business? Michelle? You're on mute again.
Sorry. Another thing from the National Committee, one thing that they really focused on was 2 or 3 different sessions focused on unbridled profit, for-profit models of journalism, 7 things that should not be for profit. So the 7 things that should not be for profit are housing, music, art and culture, transportation, education, prisons, healthcare, and journalism. So if we can all focus on those, if you want me to say them again, housing, music, art and culture, transportation, education, prisons, healthcare, and journalism. These are the main things that are attacked within our state right now, within our nation. Like, these are the main things that the citizens don't fully understand that they are being, the fronts that they're being attacked on. So we as the advocates, as our state advocates, we really need to understand and digest and focus ourselves within our local community. Mr. Casey, I think you specifically mentioned, okay, let's look at our localities and how we need to hold them accountable. And I'm paraphrasing, but you're absolutely correct that, again, I'll say them again, the 7 things that should not be unbridled profit are housing, music, art, and culture, transportation, education, prisons, healthcare, and journalism. Aren't these our main principles of FOIA and FOIL and within the state?
All right. Anything else under new business? I haven't been inviting guest speakers only because our agendas are longer lately, and a guest speaker would just make it even longer. I never know, like, we literally have, very few things to carry over from this agenda to the next agenda. So I never know, what is going to be on our agenda for the next meeting, because you never know what's going to pop up. So if we have a lighter agenda for November, we could either try to bring in a guest speaker, or it just gives us more time to talk about things. If someone doesn't have anything else under new business.
I mean, I think we should always strive to have speakers, because I think it can spur us in other directions and, creates alliances between the different groups. One of the things I wanted to point out earlier, you were mentioning Mr. Wolf, kidding, Reinvent Albany and Susan Lerner. And, if anyone's interested in seeing that presentation back when we had public presentations, that's on our YouTube channel for the New York Coalition for Open Government. If you want to see that, it's probably still very relevant.
Okay.
Just wanted to point that out.
Alberta?
Yes, if we're finished with new business, I have a couple of questions about people who are signed in here.
Sure.
So I don't know who R. Goodell is.
That's Robert Godlowski.
Robert Godlowski. Okay, thank you. And who is, looks like a telephone, Lenovo Tab.
That was Suzanne, one of our board members.
Yeah, she had to leave.
Right.
Susan.
Yeah.
Okay. Does Susan have a last name?
I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay. Well,
It's Maria's friend. Maria knows.
Sue Kelly,
Sue Kelly.
Kelley, yeah.
And
Oh.
VMF is Virginia Fakira.
Yes, I get her email, so I know who she is.
Okay. And then on the phone, we have Richard Bertrand.
Yep, got him. That's all.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Sure. So otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting, the second Thursday in November, is November 11th. And sometimes I worry that I'm sending out too many emails, but I will keep sending stuff out.
No, I think it's nice to get the emails, and sometimes you get them and you're in a hurry, at least for me. And then you have watch the 11 o'clock news, and then you're like, okay, let me go through Paul's and let me go through my best friends. And then you pick out the salient points. So I don't mind getting emails at all.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? Second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So Joe, as usual, once I have this downloaded, I will send it to you to post online. Alberta, unfortunately, I keep trying to figure out how to print a transcript, and I have not been successful, but maybe this time I will get better at figuring that out. I don't know. I'm told if you record this on the cloud, which I'm doing now, and I think I have it set up, but I seem to have difficulty. I'll have to get my 25-year-old son to do it. But otherwise, we'll see you then on November 11th.
Oh, wait a minute. I just want to say, I think we should wish Joe good luck in the election.
No, we won't want to get into that. All right. See you all.
Bye.
Bye.